Hello, my name is David Nelson, and welcome to the Days of Learning podcast series, Back to the Kitchen Takeover with registered dietitian Yvonne Greer of Why Eat Right. Yvonne and I have worked on numerous projects over the years, including the Back to the Kitchen curriculum, the online role model action guide, the Growing Your Future project, and the the idea of youth gardening project. Oh, I'm so pleased to be working with Yvonne on this series that we're going to be doing around Back to the Kitchen, including videos. And it's so good to see you, Yvonne Greer.
Thank you, David. Um, I'm really excited to be here today, and it's been great working on all of those many different projects that we have. But the one that I know that I am so proud of is the Back to the Kitchen curriculum. That curriculum was developed, as you know, because of the work that we did in the community with youth serving agencies. But it also includes so many different um, guidance. It includes recipes. It includes all kind of educational materials that youth serving agencies and individuals can use to do nutrition programs in the community. Even has talking points so that no one has to feel like they are not giving out accurate information. But also, just think about it today and this month is National Nutrition Month. It's our kickoff month.
You
So, what?
know,
Go ahead.
you know what I want to say in relation to the Back to the Kitchen curriculum? I am not a cook. I'm more of a heater upper. My wife is the cook in the family. But what I love about the curriculum, and as we've talked about it, is that you make the curriculum accessible to anybody at any level. Can you speak into that, please?
Yes, the curriculum is available online for downloading. Anyone can use it. It's actually been approved by the Food and Nutrition Service, the U.S. Food and Nutrition Service, for extension individuals to use. But people who's working in after school programs can use it. Anyone can download it. And so every one of the recipes that are going to be demonstrated is in the curriculum, as well as handout material, so that you don't have to kind of search to do this program. It's all in one curriculum. And I've made some adjustments for if you're working with young children like preschool, your tweens, your teens, and your adults. So it's a curriculum that can be used for all ages.
So there's really something for everybody in a curriculum like that. And what a way to bring families together than to think about nutrition and cooking and celebrating together. I know that that has been an important part of the way that you teach nutrition about bringing families together.
Right. Right. And the importance of role modeling for your children, important of them being able to see foods being prepared in the kitchen and being able to create a positive feeling about healthy eating and eating fruits and vegetables, which is vegetables is our topic of today. And so we want to make sure that some of our community leaders are brought in to be able to talk about how they are promoting the importance of eating vegetables and eating healthy and fit lives. And so we don't realize we are our kids' number one role models. And so what we do, they're watching us all the time.
So if we're eating a lot of fast food, guess what they're going to do at some time in the future, right? But if we're eating
Right.
vegetables and fruits, they're going to do that too, aren't they?
They are going to do that too. And then they also are going to look at what their peers are eating. And so developing a community around healthy eating of healthy fruits and vegetables and a healthy lifestyle, that it becomes the normal versus the abnormal to eat your vegetables. I know my house when we were coming up, when they cooked, when my mother cooked, we usually always say, okay, we know what the meat, we know what the potato, but what vegetables are we having? And many times we had two vegetables and we were like, "Ooh, we got, we got all these vegetables." That's the joy of eating, and sometimes some people don't have that, and so they don't understand that it is a joy to eat healthy fruits and vegetables.
I want to ask you one other question because I think it's also, we've heard this before, that it has to cost a lot of money or it has to take a lot of time in order to eat well. You don't agree with that, do you?
No, I don't agree with that because I feel like sometimes we don't realize how much money that we're wasting on fast food, which is only one meal. When you buy those staples and you make, and you'll see when I make my recipe, that there is always more fruits, vegetables. There's almost more leftovers that can be made into more items or made into soups or made into the other things. So you're getting going to get about 5 or 6 meals off of what you buy with the same amount of money when you buy healthy fruits and vegetables as when you are buying a fast food item. So it's something that we some people say, but when you start looking at getting those basic ingredients, they go further, and so they're actually more cost effective.
All right. I thought of you the other day when you talked about this idea of having two vegetables with your dinner. And I said to Karen, what two vegetables are we having tonight? And she actually did have two vegetables prepared that night.
Yep, yep. And that was just typical to have the two vegetables and on a regular everyday basis. Sometimes people say salad, but even with if we had a salad, we still say what vegetable, because we didn't think of meat potato salad is the vegetable. It's vegetables, but we also wanted another vegetable. So that idea of what your children see in combination of what you're eating. If they see you eat just burgers and fries, that's all they're gonna want is burgers and fries.
Yeah. And so we can do so much better, and it doesn't have to cost, even for those families that have a budget, or those families that don't, frankly, have all the money in the world, that they can still do it as well. Now, you mentioned something, and I wanted to have you talk into it. You said that we're talking vegetables today. So what are we going to be doing today?
Well, today we're going to be I'm going to be demonstrating a vegetable wrap up. So it is one of the vegetables that is featured in the Back to the Kitchen curriculum. And you'll see that it's going to have an abundance of different vegetables in it. And it's one of my favorites. One of the good parts of doing these demonstrations, I get to have the samples afterwards, and so I'm really doing a joy and being able to nourish my body at the same time.
I'll tell you what, the last one when we had, for those who didn't see it, you can see it on Facebook, or on our website, because the last time we did that fruit pizza, Miss Yvonne, I will tell you what, that one looked delicious, and I think we were all ready for a slice.
That was it was delicious, and I did get chastised by my daughter for not sharing. So yeah, I got to make her one, individually myself. One other thing that we want to make sure we are going to make sure we showcase is our guest champions. Today, we're going to have our own certified raw food chef, Carolyn Carter, which many people know, but along with her daughter and her business partner, Dr. Shenita Ray. And both of them are going to be here. They're going to be able to talk about their new podcast series, these three things, as well as all of their efforts to promote healthy eating, especially in the vegetables. And then also Oscar Bond. He is a master gardener. He's a health advocate. Many people know about his posts. He walks so much. And then also, he also was one of my personal colleagues when I was working at the Milwaukee Health Department. So I'm very excited about what they're going to be able to share as far as their insights on eating healthy and living an active lifestyle.
Ms. Vanessa gave us a shout out saying sharing is caring, and somebody else said, especially when it comes to food, Vanessa. And I'm so grateful that Caroline is here, because she introduced me to the raw food movement, and I think the world of Caroline, and it's so neat and so wonderful that we have Dr. Ray here as well, that she could join us despite her busy schedule. So, hey, Yvonne, can we watch the video now?
Yes, it's time to roll the video.
Let's watch the video.
Hello, I'm Yvonne Greer, and welcome back to my kitchen. As a member of MCOP, Milwaukee County Organization Promoting Prevention, along with the Medical College of Wisconsin, with support of the state of Wisconsin's chronic disease prevention and health promotion programs, with funding through the CDC 1815 grant. This is the second program in the 6-part Days of Learning series that features a healthy recipe from the Back to the Kitchen curriculum. So now let's get started with today's recipe, the vegetable wrap-ups. For this recipe, we'll be using a low-fat tortilla shells, an assortment of vegetables that we will prepare by shredding and cutting, a low-fat shredded cheddar cheese, and a sauce made with your low-fat mayonnaise made with olive oil, and also low-fat sour cream. Let's start with the sour cream, and we'll put equal parts sour cream and mayo in. If you're making it for a group, you can put a cup of each in, and that makes up about 4 of your tortilla shells. You don't have to measure because it's not exact. So now we're just going to stir this so that it's evenly distributed. And we're going to set it off to the side. I always wash out all the vegetables before we start shredding. Let's sit right here. This is our grater. Some people may not have seen these before. Some people have them in the house. You can find them at any store. There's a regular grocery store, and that way you can grate up your vegetables. I'm going to start with the carrots. I'm using the larger size, and all you do is go back and forth. The only thing that I warn people about is to make sure that they watch out for their fingers, because we don't want a little bit of that into our wrap-ups. Like I hit right now, I'm getting to the bottom. So that's enough. Do the zucchini in the same manner. And it doesn't take long before you get down to the bottom. I won't be doing the whole thing, but you get the idea. You see how it's going down, and again, watching out for your fingers. And for your tomato, all you would need to do is slice off the one end. And you don't have to, just the one with the stem. Cut it in 2. Lay it flat. Now, when we're trying to dice up our tomatoes, it's cut them lengthwise. I do them one at a time. See, I'm holding it on both sides. Keeping them together. Lengthwise. And now just cut across. Do the other one the same way. If you don't want to get your fingers, many of the chefs turn it up like that. I'm not as good, but your knuckles out, that'll save you from cutting up your fingers or cutting your fingernails off. And I'll add that to tomatoes. We got plenty of tomatoes. Now, many of you might be looking at what these are. These are your flexible cutting boards. I use them more often because they're easy to wash. They're flexible, easier to get things into containers. Now the recipe calls for red peppers, but I'm going to be using red and yellow just to have the colors of the rainbow. One thing that is to remember in cutting a vegetable is to have a nice paring knife. One that can fit in your hands real good, and that it's sharp, and that way you don't have any slippage and you can control it really good. And again, this one I want to make sure I get out the vein. And this one's already done. So again, turning them over is the best way. And then you do the same thing that we did with the others. Cut them in strips first. And this, I'm just doing this to show you. You can chop it up any way you would like, but at least it gets the job done pretty quickly. And you know, after I cut the strips, what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it the other way and cut. And now you have your nice items diced up. Some people like to use the big butcher's knife. I've never been good with the butcher's knife. I hate to say that, but so you see how I've gathered them all up. I'm not going to do them individually. I'm going to gather them all up, hold them tight together, and then just go across. Let me put this one on the top. They're all now there. Now as long as you do it, a couple might come out, but as long as you do it tight, you can get them done. And then you can take care of any of them that wasn't there. I'm going to do the same thing with the red peppers. It really doesn't make a difference whether you mix them. You just move it off to the side. The only reason why you would keep them separate is if you want to make sure you get the same amount of vegetables from each one, or if you like to put more of one than the other. I like them evenly. I've known some people to mix it all up and then just put it in there together, but I love seeing my colors. Now we're going to prepare the tortilla shells. How you prepare the tortilla shells is you put them on a plate, take a paper towel, you wet it, and you're going to put that over the tortilla shells so that they stay moist when you heat them up. I'm going to heat them up in the microwave for only about 15 seconds. That way it's enough to get them moist, get them heated, and they will roll nice and easy. And nice and warm. So the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to add on the sauce. And we could put the sauce all the way over. If you were measuring it, you would use 1 to 2 tablespoons, depending upon your taste. Eventually, as you have them, you'll know, did I add enough? Was it too much? I like a little bit a lot. So now it's nice and covered. And we're going to add our vegetables one at a time. And it doesn't make any difference which way you do it. But I only add vegetables to half. So you see I'm adding it to half and have a line. Then I'll add another spoon or two of the tomato. Nicely they lay together. And now I'm going to add in the carrots. I'll shred nice carrots. A roll full of carrots. I'm a little heavy-handed, so you have to watch out for how much, because you do have a lot of ingredients, but it's going to be really tasty that way. And then your red peppers. One ingredient that is optional is your red onion. Now your shredded cheese. You see how nice a mound that is? Nice and colorful. Do it like this. Of course, you know I like a little cheese, so I'm going to put a nice little cheese on it. Okay. I'm going to add a little red onion to the next one. Should I just want to add it to this one? Yeah, sounds great. Ugh. And now my mouth in the water. Okay, so there's a lot of vegetable there. How you roll it up is you take your time and right there, you kind of press. And you do it again and you press. And then you bring this one up. And that's your roll up. Don't worry about it coming out the sides because those are going to be okay. You put the toothpicks in because you're going to cut it in between those toothpicks to make your circles. I tighten up the ends a little. Okay, so we've placed our toothpicks in, and what we're going to do, you see that I actually have too much on there, but that's okay. We will be saving that extra that comes out. But usually what you do is you cut in between the toothpicks. Okay, here we got another one. Another one. And that's what it looks like. A beautiful vegetable roll up. You've got your whole wheat tortilla, onions, all kind of things. You know I want to take a bite. Thank you so much for joining us. Now it's time for our discussion session. And I'm going to enjoy this nutritious treat.
Yvonne, I just got to say that my mouth was watering as well. That was really, it really looked good. And when the things fell out the side, I'm like, well, that's what your fingers are for.
Right.
Yvonne, before we bring our guests on, I have a couple of questions for you about the video. And the first one is, you know what? We often think that people have to have really expensive cutlery and things to prepare the food. Tell people what are some basic utensils that they might have. And if you have a sense of how much they cost, because they don't have to cost a lot of money, do they?
No, they don't. And I have to say, sometimes I just look at the little section in the regular grocery stores, and they have knives and many of the things you need right there. You see that my major tool is my paring knife. I have a nice little, that's my favorite one. I have other ones, but a nice, good paring knife. Let's be good. I have just things like measuring cups, measuring spoons. Also, some cutting boards would be good to have. But and my blender, the blender you see in the background, that is pretty essential, and some good pots and pans. I really, I have some some cutting what you call small equipment. I
Mm-hmm.
don't hardly use it because it's many a times it's not necessary, and it's cause to me it makes more things to clean up afterwards. So
Mm.
I don't really invest in all of those things, but depending upon as you go forward, I know one thing I want to get is those spiral equipment that makes the zucchini noodles. So
Zoodles.
definitely I want to get that. That's going to be one of my prime things that I'm going to get. But no, I do most everything with my trusty little knife. And so you don't have to spend a lot of money on equipment.
You used that last time, and I just said, she just doesn't have a lot of knives, and she acknowledged not wanting to use the big knife. Since this is about vegetables, I want you to tell the audience, for those who might not know, and I noticed that you use vegetables, a variety of vegetables, and that they had different colors. Why is it important to have a variety of vegetables in your diet from a dietetics perspective?
Because all of the different colors of the rainbows, the colors of the fruit have active ingredients in there. Your tomatoes with your lycopene, and I really like lycopene because it actually not only prevents damage to your tissues, but it also helps repair damaged tissue. So I always say that's that anti-aging one that keeps your body and your skin looking so good with some of your lycopene. But your onions and your red and tomatoes, they have different types of nutrients in them. You've got quercetin that comes from some of your apples and some of your other foods. So when you start looking at the different colors, your purples with flavonoids and another, other types of vitamins and minerals. So vitamins and minerals we hear all the time, but we don't know that those colors that are different pigments of those fruits and vegetables actually have active chemicals. They call them phytochemicals, but they're healthy chemicals. It protects the plant, but also when you eat them, it protects your body as well.
Mm. And I noticed that all of the vegetables that you ate, and we're going to talk about this with Carolyn and Dr. Ray, and Oscar, they were all raw. They were all that you didn't cook a single thing.
Right. And you can eat a combination when you don't cook your fruits and vegetables. And I always say fruits and vegetables because sometimes people do cook and grill fruits and as well. You preserve the vitamin C and some of the natural nutrients in them. However, I'm a proponent that there's times that even when you cook, some nutrients are made more what they call bioavailable, meaning they're easier to absorb, like your lycopene with some of the cooked products if it's released out of the tissue. So you can have a combination of both, but you get the full amount of nutrients when you do not cook them. So that you want to make sure that you're going to have a balance. Many say, like it's like a 70-30.
Hey, Vanessa.
Wait, no.
Ms. Yvonne, before we bring our guests in, I want to ask you one more question.
Vanessa, Chris, I'm here, but Chris,
I can still hear you.
You had on your smock, you had this thing called Novodan. What is Novodan?
I'm glad you brought that up. I kind of, sent a message to my Novodan colleagues. Novodan is the National Organization of Blacks in Dietetics and Nutrition. And we have a whole group of dietitians. We're all part of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, but we also have a group that we know that we support each other and that we are all working to promote health and wellness in our respective communities all over the United States and the Caribbean and in Canada. So it's a wonderful group. And I had the pleasure in 2015, 2016 to be the chair of Novodan. So I'm always going to be ringing their praises. And they actually honored me. And I have to say this, they honored me with the Greer Award, which is right back here. And given to a dietitian who have a storied career to tell and who have promoted excellence in the dietetic profession. So I'm glad you mentioned that. That's just my little tribute to Novodan by wearing the Novodan apron.
Tell us, because I think there's culture in that. Tell us what the GRIOT stands for.
Well, it stands for the idea that you are someone who can tell the history of your group, which is our Novodan, but also that you really are promoting that whole cultural past. And so you carry that with you. You're there as one of the mentors of the youth that is coming behind you. So we have young dietitians that are carrying the torch, and I'm kind of one of those seasoned, like I always call seasoned nutrition professionals that they can look to for that support.
Yeah, but I know you're not done yet. Let's continue this discussion with our guests. We want to bring our guests in now?
It's time to bring on our guests.
We are so thrilled today to have our guest, Ms. Carolyn Carter, certified raw food chef, and her daughter and business partner, Dr. Shenita Ray. Together, they are co-hosts of the podcast, These Three Things. And maybe Kelsey will put that into the chat. They are also the former co-hosts of the popular Cooking Raw Milwaukee Public TV show, Cooking Raw. Yes. Carolyn Carter is book author of Mother Daughter Diary, and Dr. Shenita Ray is owner of With Love Stationery. Miss Carolyn, it's so good to see you. Dr. Ray, it is so good to have you and to meet you for the first time. Miss Yvonne, who else do we have today as one of our guests?
Well, I am definitely honored to introduce Oscar Bond. Oscar is 75 years young. 75 years young. But he's a definitely longtime friend of mine. We worked together at the Milwaukee Health Department. He was born and raised in Beloit, Wisconsin. He's a veteran of the Vietnam War. He has a BA in zoology from UWM and is a retired food inspector at the City of Milwaukee Health Department. He's an avid gardener, But he knows, I am just in awe that he has developed this ecosystem where not only gardens, but he has the plants and the birds, and everything attracts each other to make a system for pollination. It's just so beautiful. I had to say a little bit more about that. But he's also a master gardener. He volunteers with the state of Wisconsin. So welcome, Oscar.
Hello, you hear me, right?
Yes, I can hear you
Okay.
well.
I'm fairly new to Zoom. My son is on Microsoft's equivalent to Zoom, whatever. So this is the second time I've been on Zoom.
Right, right. Well, we hear you loud and clear.
Good. I'm
So,
learning.
Welcome.
Never too old to learn anything.
We want to learn from you as well. So thank you for coming, and welcome to both and all of you. It's just a pleasure. I'm going to start us off with some questionings. And again, I want you all to feel comfortable in discussing and adding in. My first question is, when it comes to vegetables, what types of vegetables do you make sure that you are putting on your shopping list? You know, one thing that we kind of skipped over, and I want to make sure we get this in, is that we're going to be having a kind of like a raffle. And as we're talking, those of you in the audience and if online, if you can text us your contact information, whether it's a email or a phone number, but could you name 2 vegetables, 2 starchy and 2 non-starchy vegetables that you would be adding to your shopping list? I want to go back with Caroline starting first, and then we're going to go on. What types of vegetables do you add to your shopping list?
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Hi, everybody. Hi, David. Long time no see. Hi, Mr. Bonds. How are you?
Hello.
Hey, Nita. Girl, we sort of like dressed almost alike, right? Same colors.
We're on the same wave path here.
Yeah. So listen, really, kale is always on my list. I love kale. Collard greens on my list. Anything green, cabbage, red peppers, a lot of the things that you put on that wrap,
Right.
Yvonne, carrots, red peppers, red onions, those things are like staples. You know, some people say salt and pepper. Those type of vegetables are staples for me. Nita, what about you?
Yeah. And it was so funny, Yvonne, when you asked that question. I don't know if you can see my list. So this is my grocery list.
Yes.
I make a grocery list, and I have a whole column just for my vegetables. And so everything that my mom mentioned, kale, cabbage, carrots, cilantro,
Yes.
onions, garlic. My refrigerator is regularly stocked with, I think, almost every vegetable that I can get at the grocery store. I like to have a lot of variety in my diet. And so I haven't found a vegetable that I don't like. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Oscar, what about you?
Well, I like all kinds of it. I'm glad she mentioned the collard greens because I just started my winter sowing yesterday. I'm about 3 or 4 weeks behind because of the cold weather we've been having anywhere. But what I planted yesterday was in my winter sowing was collard greens and 4 different types of tomatoes. I'm just getting starting on that, whatever. So,
So are you you're planting those in the winter?
Winter gardening is a technique of using milk jugs and stuff to start them early, so they freeze and thaw, and it helps the seeds prepare them so they'll sprout up. They'll be ready about like the end of May or whatever. Plant in my garden. I do buy some plants too, just in case some of them don't come out too well. So I go to the garden center and buy a few, but it's different and fun, whatever. But peppers is one of my favorites. I plant in different varieties of tomatoes or whatever. I've gotten into some things that I didn't eat when I was growing up, whatever. like last year was the first time I planted some summer cooking nut squash, and boy, they came out really good. I really love those or whatever. So zucchinis, I've been planting for a number of years, and usually they take over the garden. It gets so big. If I don't see them hiding in the leaves, they get too big, whatever. So
Yes, I grew up out in Milwaukee, but out in Oak Creek, we had a farm. So from little on, we had to go and harvest. And zucchini was one of the ones that if you didn't go back out there every week during harvest size, they can get to be huge. We never know how big they can get. They can be huge.
yeah, they can weigh maybe 3 or 4 pounds if you let them get too big. I'd rather have them like small, like about 1.5 inches in diameter, maybe about 6 inches long, and pick them then when they're kind of small.
Right.
But I've tried different ones and whatever, and I think too. When I was growing up, certain vegetables, bless her heart, but my mother and the people in the South, they overcooked the vegetables. I hated cabbage when I was small. They would just cook it to death and other things, whatever. But as I got older, I thought, hey, wait a minute. I found out, don't overcook them. No, I like cabbage and the black-eyed peas because then they still got a little crunch to them. Al dente, as they say, whatever.
Some people who have cooked their cabbage to the point that their cabbage turns yellow.
Oh, mush.
This color. And so that, that that's when it's overcooked. I mean, and it's just how people grew up, but there is other ways. I make a nice stir fry cabbage that, if you like cooked cabbage, you can eat cabbage raw all the time, but if you like a cooked cabbage, a stir fry would be good. One thing I wanted to know though, have you always eaten this? And I think I'm going to start with Shenita. Have you always eaten that many vegetables, or is that something you grow into?
So the short answer is no. I have not always eaten this way, and I was reflecting on this before our call today. That I do remember my mom cooking with a lot of vegetables, and she always had a lot of fresh fruit in the house. I love grapes. She always had bananas and apples and watermelons. So I have a memory of having fruits and vegetables in my diet, but not in the way that I have them now, which is, I think, much more variety. I am, like you said, much more conscious about how much I cook the vegetables so that they don't lose a lot of their nutritional value. My diet now is more skewed to vegetarian. I still eat meat, I still have some dairy, but it's much more heavily vegetarian than it has been in the past. And so I've seen such a great difference in my energy, my skin, my weight, just a whole lifestyle change with really being much more conscious about the scale and scope of the vegetables and fruit that I have in my diet now.
What about
I just want to add a little bit of something in there.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't grow up. I did grow up with a lot of vegetables, just like Nita. The thing of it is that it was always cooked. And so I just want to share, she didn't share this, but I'm going to share it, is that when I got into the raw vegan and I started sharing it with Nita, and she began to incorporate that. Now, she was an adult living in Platteville, Wisconsin at the time.
Oh.
And I started sharing this food with her, and she started enjoying it. And so a few months, I don't know if it was 6 months, 7 months, so many months later, she came back, and she was told for the very first time in years that her thyroid was in normal range. Mm-hmm. Because as a teenager, she was always tired. And I thought she was just lazy. I'm like, girl, you just lazy. You just don't want to do nothing. She would come home from school, take a nap, and then she would wake up and do her homework or whatever. And then finally, I took her to the doctor, and she was diagnosed. Her thyroid was overactive, mm-hmm. And so then, she went on like that for years, and so then eventually got into this food, And we weren't thinking about anything. And then all of a sudden not all of a sudden, but she had a doctor's appointment. And the doctor said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Because of her diet, her lifestyle changed for the very first time. How many years? Do you recall that, Nita?
Yeah, I mean, I was in my mid-30s then.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it took a while for us to
That
really
is
figure out.
so interesting because, this is what we need to know, that our health can improve at any age if we just start eating healthier, and eating some of those foods from nature and natural ways is very important. What about you, Oscar? Did you always eat healthy as a child?
As a child, yes, it was after a child. I grew up
Okay.
where I started eating probably not very healthy, especially after I went into service and whatever. And I got commission or whatever. And oh man, when I was like in my 20s, after graduating from officers candidate school, I was 100, I think I was like 130 pounds. I would say in 6 months, because we had making more money than ever in my life. We'd go to the officers club, we'd eat baked potatoes and steak all the time. And I shot up to maybe 30 pounds in about 6 months, whatever. So it was after I got out and came back, went to college and stuff and whatever. Later on, I started eating healthy or whatever, different times. At one time, I did go, I would say maybe just strict vegetarian for a while, whatever. And then I got out of habit. But lately, I've been started doing what I knew I should have been doing for years or whatever. I've, as you know, back in like 2012, I'd ballooned up to 242 pounds, had stents put in my heart 2 times.
Wow.
And that scares you. You find out you're mortal, whatever. So since 2012 up to last January for the pandemic, I brought down to 172 pounds, slow but sure, to get it off the weight. So I'm down to 172 pounds when I was up as high as 242 pounds at one time.
And I would know that you've kind of chronologized everything you was doing on Facebook, and it has motivated so many people to take hold of their health. And that's why a lot of time the sharing is so important.
Yes.
Also, letting your children know and see you eating those healthy fruits and vegetables. It's great that you shared what you were doing. That is so important. I'm going to go on to kind of one more question, and then I'm going to turn it over to David to ask a couple of his questions. Is that, so I mentioned starchy vegetables and non-starchy vegetables. Do you know or even pay attention to starchy versus non-starchy vegetables? And I'll see if and explain why that's so important. So what about you? Do you think of starchy versus non-starchy vegetables?
Are you talking-
Go ahead, Nita.
Yeah.
So not really. So when I think about a starchy vegetable, the one that comes to mind are potatoes. Is that okay? Okay. I was like, yes, I got one right. But no, I don't think about starchy versus non-starchy vegetables. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that, Yvonne. Once you ask everybody their
What about you, Caroline?
Well, I agree with Nita. I don't consciously think about it. I find that I eat more non-starchy vegetables, but I do love, like zucchini is a starchy vegetable. A lot of the squash and things like that
zucchini actually isn't, but other is.
Well, that's wonderful to know. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the difference between the winter and the summer squashes. The summer ones is less calories. The winter ones are more higher.
Well, because I'm eating like a butternut squash.
That's the winter
soup right now.
Okay.
So I know that has that is starchy, but again, I balance it out and I added like lots of those red peppers, green peppers, and other things like that with it. But I tend to eat more leafy greens and not so much starchy.
Yeah.
Potatoes are out.
Yeah.
Once in a while, sweet potatoes.
Yeah, I do sweet potatoes a lot.
Yeah. What about you, Oscar? What about the starchy versus non-starchy? and why they're important to know about?
Well, I do eat some potatoes, not too often, but matter of fact, I planted them in my garden the last couple of years. I've planted various variety, whatever, and grow my own, whatever. Thank God, it's not an awful lot of them, whatever. But I do eat those. But I like what she mentioned, the squashes, and I had very good success with my acorn squashes last year. So, are they non-starchy?
They're still starchy. The
Okay.
reason why I brought the starchy versus non-starchy vegetables is for those individuals who are trying to watch their blood sugar levels, and they trying to watch their weight, and just
Right.
the idea that all vegetables many are loaded with nutrients. Most all vegetables, even the starchy ones, because you get your beta carotene from those sweet potatoes, and you get certain nutrients in starchy ones as well, and protein, but because they have double the calories of your leafy greens. Double and triple the calories. Sometimes we don't know, if we're only eating starchy vegetables, that we can be overeating in the calorie level. And so that means that they have a higher sugar content. And many times they can affect your blood sugar level if you're not watching how much of your starchy vegetables you're eating. So that's why there's some portion sizes when you start talking about eating starchy vegetables, and then having non-starchy vegetables, because you can eat an abundance of non-starchy and not go over your calories. But with those starchy vegetables, you can quickly overrun your calories with carbohydrates from eating too many starchy vegetables. But it's not that you can't have some. So that moderation is key. But I just wanted to bring that in. So starchy vegetables, you do have your potatoes, both your white, your sweet potatoes. They have purple potatoes. Your peas, your green peas, your corn is considered a starchy vegetable. And when we say that, that's on par with the same calorie level as a slice of bread, just to give you an equivalent. So 70, 80 calories in a serving versus only anywhere from 5 to 35. Carrots have about 35. I used to say all root, but not all root vegetables have the higher numbers, but they may have up to 35 in a serving, so they're a little bit higher. Beets is also considered the 35, but they're not considered a high starchy vegetable. So just keep that in mind as when we start looking at those. Parsnips is considered a very starchy one. I had parsnips. That's one I didn't eat regularly, but I had them lately, and oh, I love them. Found out I love parsnips at my age. Right? I mean, that was a revelation for me. Something like a kohlrabi is another vegetable we don't always have, and I tried that one, and I love it too. And it's one of those in between ones, like around the 35-ish, So just to keep that in mind, that when you start looking at your peas, corn, and your potatoes, which is many times staple in our community, that we need to branch out and start getting those leafy greens and those other types of vegetables in that has much less calories. You can have more of them and just enjoy and not over worry about calories.
Yvonne,
So, yes.
one thing I had to do to lose the weight was, African Americans, like I always say, I had to cut back on what you call the church lady portions or whatever, and cut down on. I read the labels and see. It's amazing how much calories there says in a serving, and you find out a serving is only a half a cup, not half a plate.
Your serving, your portion versus a measured serving. Your portion might be 3 times that little serving.
Right.
So that when you're looking at that calories, you have to look at how much are they counting. Is it a half a cup? Because that would get people when they would get a bag of something and they say, "Oh, I can eat this whole bag." No, it's low calorie, but it doesn't mean you can eat the whole bag.
Right.
So, Shenita, you were going to say something?
No, I was just going to remark about the beets. I actually just bought some red beets to make some juice, or to make some fresh juice. So it's good that I now have, starchy versus non-starchy vegetables in my mind, so I can be even more conscientious when I go to the grocery store.
I said, Vanessa, you listening to the beets? She knows I love me some beets. They so healthy. She don't like beets, but I said I love me some beets. I said if I can get some beets in. I use beets like people use pickles.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they're in my house all the time, and I have them with everything.
Yeah.
She laughs at me.
So I just want to, I just want to add to,
Sure.
is that you are 100% correct, Yvonne, but people, you know, I might, and like I said, I don't eat a lot of starchy vegetables, but if you are exercising a little bit, if you're walking, biking, if you're doing some type of activity, you know, you can then eat a little bit more of the starchy vegetables because, you know, it's burning those calories and things like that out. And plus your body might need that extra fuel. So keep that in mind. I mean, if we're just sitting down 24/7 and, you know, we have a desk job, that's one thing. And just make sure that you are moving, move.
Yeah, that is so key. That is a key point to bring in, and the idea that if you're eating the natural foods and not having all the extra processed items, and lowering the amount of breads and things, you can have some bread, but lowering the amount. Then when you're having that natural food with physical activity, you don't always have to over or worry, because if you tune into your body, your appetite will help control you, and your body will get satisfied. See, that's the thing. When you get satisfied and your body says no more, you don't overeat.
You know what? That's a great point, Yvonne. Great point. Prior to me, you know, incorporating raw vegan foods into my lifestyle, I promise you, I could cook. I cook a really good meal. I could cook like a Sunday meal it could be like roast and cabbage and, you know, all this good stuff, cornbread, just like so good, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Mr. Oscar, right?
Yes, I do.
and so I remember I sometimes I would wait until my kids went to bed. Shenita, her brother, went to bed, and I would call up Ned's Pizza.
Oh no.
Oh, send me a pizza, Ned. I know what you're
Ned's
talking.
Pizza. And I would eat to the point where I got stuff. But here's the thing: once I began to incorporate fruits and vegetables into my life, there was something inside my head, is that when I was full, I was full. I know I didn't overeat anymore. It was just like automatic switch. And the last thing I'm gonna say, I used to get on Shenita a lot. We would go out to eat or something like that. And you know, it costs money. And this girl would take a few bites and then she would dump it in the garbage. I'm like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong? And I used to get upset with her, but over the years, you know, I began to realize that she was right. And that by me eating, even after I was full,
Right.
I was using my body as a garbage disposal. And she, you know what I'm saying? And I was getting this big. And she, I don't know where she got it from, but she would say I had enough. She wouldn't even ask me. Well, Mom, she would just do it. She knew, I'm pretty sure she knew if she asked me, I would tell her, girl, you can't throw it away or give it to me. But the more vegetables you eat, the more you want more vegetables.
Yeah. I totally agree. Well, we're going to turn it over to David, because David's got some good old questions, and I'm raring to hear what everyone has to say.
I'm learning as I go, but I want to give you guys some of the things that the chat is saying. They're saying, Yvonne, the meal looked delicious. The colors were awesome. Shenita, somebody says, I keep Brussels sprouts and broccoli on my list. Somebody also said, love cilantro. Cilantro. Spinach is always on my list. Arugula for me. Red pepper garlic, can't have tomatoes, but have always liked fresh tomatoes. Love yellow squash. sorry, somebody was calling me. I want to make sure that I mute that. And then send the idea of not knowing about the idea of what starchy is. And somebody says, I avoid white anything, so I tend to avoid potatoes. Focus on brassica, right? Did I spell? I don't know if I said that right. Cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and greens. Beets are amazing. Beets! Exclamation point. And so, okay, I have a question for all of you, and this actually comes from Vanessa, but it fits with what I was thinking. And this is for you too, Oscar. How did you learn to make the varied raw vegetables taste amazing together? So I want to talk about this from a couple of ideas. Not only the idea of the taste, but I also want to talk about the health impact. So could each of you speak into the idea of what you see vegetables do for you, especially around thinking about chronic diseases like hypertension and type 2 diabetes, which are epidemic in almost all of our communities? Oscar, can I start with you on this one?
Sure. Well, like I said, I over the years, I've gardened a lot or whatever. So I used to just grow all kinds of different vegetables, and a lot of them I would just give away. And a couple of years ago, I made up my mind. I said, okay, I'm planting all this stuff. I'm going to start eating it. So I started eating a lot of different colored vegetables and stuff I never ate before. And so to my surprise, I said, hey, this is pretty good. And then Yvonne, I'm a little experimental. Before I do stir fry some vegetables, just a little bit, whatever, and try them in different ways and add different seasonings to them, whatever. And surprise, I mean, things like leek and what's the one that I always forget the name of? I know to pick it up when I'm in Outposts. The one that tastes like licorice, the vegetable. You know which one I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. It's the white bulb. Oh,
yeah, right. And
I know what you're talking about.
So I like to try the different things and chop them up and mix them up together. And I just get creative. I don't always look for a recipe. I see somebody on TV doing something. I just add my own little touch to it and whatever, and cook those up. And like I say, making sure I don't have the church lady portions of meat and stuff like that, and eat those vegetables when it's very rewarding. I mean, I've got some leeks and stuff, now
one thing that you've always done is kind of shared, how you've improved your health, because you just said that you have over time lost weight. How did that affect your health, after you've had, made those changes?
You know what? Right now, I'm 75 years old. I feel actually better every morning when I get up better than I did when I was 50. Because of that, because I incorporated. I try to had to just get back into it because of the pandemic messing things up, whatever. But I get out and walk in the morning. I make it a habit. I just get up at 5:30, about 6:30 in the morning. I'm out to take my walk and stuff and whatever. At least 30 minutes, and try it 4 to 5 times a week, incorporate it away. So I always say it's a good health is a 3-legged stool. I always say, unless you gotta eat right, exercise, and get sleep. And if you miss one of those legs, the stool falls over. That's the way I look at it.
Carolina.
I just want to say real quick, Shenita, she did type in, Oscar, that white vegetable that you're talking about is fennel.
Yeah, that's it.
I couldn't think of it either.
I forget it all the time. I don't know. It tastes like licorice. I know it is when I see it. I always forget the name.
But you know what, Oscar, number one, I'm going to have to connect with you, but you look absolutely wonderful at 75 years old, and or 75 years young. Let me change that. 75 years young, and a great inspiration. And I'm like you, I used to be almost 300 pounds, suffer from depression, and took medication, trying to help me feel better. And for me, way back then, what the medication did, it allowed me to function, but not to feel. And I didn't know what to do. So I really I know one time I was taking my medication, and my mother, she was around, and she saw me changing. Now this is where it comes to like them old fashioned mamas, even
Yeah.
though I was an adult and taking it, she saw me, just change. I wasn't who I used to be. And one day I remember I went into there in the bathroom, take a bath. And while I was in there, my mother walked into my bedroom and she took all of my medication and she threw it away. She just dumped it. She just threw it away. And I didn't get pissed or mad. But so that was way years before I got into this. But long story short, I just started praying and started meditating. And I asked God, I said, God, I need you to heal me here. And I need you to heal me here. And I just kept going on. And that was my focus. Heal me on the inside. I didn't want to look good. I wasn't concerned about the almost 300 pounds. I needed to feel good. And so what God did for me is that started introducing me to people, and everybody was talking about fruits and vegetables and in its natural state. And one thing led to the next. And I eventually met this one woman in Chicago, Illinois. And she had started a group, and it was all about raw vegan food. And for 2 years straight, she would call me once a month and say, Caroline, come to this raw vegan meetup. And I'm like, nope, because I'm from the South. I love my shitlins. You know what those are? I said, my shitlins, and my fried fish and all. Oh Lord, I wasn't giving that up. And you talking about some vegetables? Oh no. And so 2 years straight I went, and then I fell in love just like that. And so what did it do for me? Look.
Yeah, changed you.
It changed me. And here it is. And I want to say this the last thing. Whereas people were hating me, it's like, oh girl, you're so mean, you're so nasty, you're so this, you're so that. I didn't laugh, and it just changed my world. And all the way around. And so I'm happier for it, So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Okay.
We always appreciate when people are vulnerable about their shortcomings. And I think it helps us you don't have to be a superstar or something that's been doing this their whole life to make those changes that you were talking about. And Oscar and Caroline, you both said that. Shenita, I want you to speak into it from your perspective, from both learning from your mom and learning from your family, and how you've taken that and incorporated that into your life, into that philosophy.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of what Mr. Bonds and my mom had said in terms of like, how do you make the food taste good? It is a lot of experimentation and being willing to try new things. I think, one thing that my mom and I were talking about recently is that, many of us are afraid to try foods outside of our daily kind of habit. And the more that we're willing to try like fennel and turmeric and mint and see the ways in which you can use those ingredients in different ways, you'll learn that there's just so many variations, so many different ways to make a meal taste good. So experimentation is one way that I really make my food taste good, is that I'm always trying and experimenting with new ingredients. But then also I like to use spices. So turmeric, garlic powder, onion powder, cayenne pepper. I use those to flavor up my vegetables. And so, yeah, it's just this continual journey of really trying to continue to expand my palate and seeing where it takes me. In terms of how the vegetables and eating this way has impacted my health, like my mom said, when I was younger, I was always tired. I didn't know what it was. We knew it had a little bit to do with my thyroid, but the extent to which my energy level just spiked when my diet changed, it was incredible. So just being much more alert, just being much more attentive to what was going on in my environment, being able to focus more. I used to have incredible migraines because, I think because of my diet and lack of exercise, and I don't have those as frequently. And I know when my diet changes, so for instance, if I'm not drinking enough water, if I'm not eating enough leafy greens, if I'm not having enough fruits and vegetables in my diet, my body immediately reacts. Like I can tell right away that something is off. And I can think back, I'm like, oh, you know what? Yesterday I didn't have my 8 glasses of water. Oh, I've gone 3 days without having a salad. And so my body adjusts to this lifestyle, and it lets me know as soon as I'm off my game to get back on it. And so I try to stay on my game because it makes me feel good. It makes me be much more just alive by eating food that, is alive and good for us as well.
That's so important. Yvonne, I want you to speak into the science of what Shenita, Caroline, and Oscar are talking about, because we often hear about cooking food and hearing it cooks the good out of it. And these, all three are talking about raw vegetables and things with minimal cooking. What's the science behind that?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, that the science supports the idea that there's certain nutrients that are very, very heat sensitive. And if you're eating only foods that are cooked and never getting any raw in, you're going to miss out on some of those. One perfect one is vitamin C. And vitamin C is in your raw vegetables, but very, very heat sensitive. And so you can lose that the more you it goes through the cooking process. So that some nutrients in that food though are still there. Your vitamin A is not heat sensitive, and so your vitamin A will be retained. Your protein is going to be retained. You're going to have different things retained in that food, but some certain nutrients that you need to really work with your immune system, that is going to work to keep your energy up and things, can be lost. And so when you're eating those fresh fruits and vegetables that have not been cooked, you're getting those nutrients in, not only like your phytochemicals in, but you're getting the extra vitamin C. You're getting things that's in its natural form that your body can readily utilize, and that and it's going to feed into life. I even plain old water, sometimes we think, oh well, your fruits and vegetables even give you water. It hydrates you to eat, not just drinking water, but eating fruits and vegetables gives you that hydration that you need. So when you take that out, you're not only taking out, not getting the important nutrients in that you need, but you're also not getting in some of the fluid and things that you also need. And so, it's always saying the balance between the cook and the raw, but yet that those raw are essential to getting in the nutrients that you need. And so when we talk about the vegetarian diets, the dietary guidelines now say that we should make every bite count, make every bite count. And they're saying, so the nutrient dense foods, having the most foods with the most nutrients in there, takes you back into the more natural foods. And then the other part of that is eat a dietary pattern that is healthy, meaning you can know what's in food, but if you don't eat a diet on a regular basis that has a pattern of having those healthier foods in there, they said, well, a healthy pattern diet is the vegetarian. The healthy pattern diet is the Mediterranean. The healthy pattern might be eating by the My Plate. But the combination of how you put your foods together culturally can be a healthy diet too, if you get those basic nutrient dense foods in. So not only keying on nutrient density of food, but the pattern of putting and mixing and eating those foods on a regular basis, not a fad thing. Not to say, oh, I'm going to go get acai berries and know after a while I'm not going to keep buying these acai berries. Something in your diet on a regular everyday basis that you're getting those nutrients in your diet, and that you will feel good.
Mhm.
It, like you said, it actually helps with, you say depression. It actually makes you feel better and more positive
Yeah.
about life.
Shenita talked about the idea of alertness and focus, and Oscar talked about, which somebody really liked, the idea of the three-legged stool analogy. Oscar, people like that, the idea of exercise, the idea of eating, and the idea of sleep. I'm wondering, Oscar, if you could tell people that are listening, because you are known to be you are a master gardener. Um, how do people begin such a thing? Because I think the more that you understand your environment, um, the more you can feel comfortable around that. So how would you suggest people begin to get to know their food through gardening?
Well, um, like I said, I started off my grandfather had a farm in Tennessee. So I was around vegetables at a young age, starting like 6 years old, and he grew okra, purple hull peas, uh, squash, things like that, whatever. And I got away from it a little bit, but then I remember my roots, number one. And number two, I uh, of the ilk that if you can read, you can learn anything. Okay. So I read a lot of stuff on fruits and vegetables. And like I say, my degree was in zoology. And oddly enough, I wasn't much into botany, whatever, until I got out of college a years later. And I got to working in my gardens. And I said, dog, I should have taken more botany classes and learned more about plants and stuff and whatever. But, it's never too, like I say, you're never too old to learn something new and different. So I'd say go referral sources and whatever to learn this stuff. Pick your sites that are run by, like, say, from the Mayo Clinic, or one of my favorites for men especially is the Cleveland Clinic, because I get then their newsletter or everything. So those different places, like, you get to learn those kind of things, whatever. And like I say, I love public act PBS, whatever. And there's good programs and things you can run on PBS. Like I said, we need to use the TV more than just for entertainment. You can learn an awful lot from that. And I also got into learning a lot about gardening, hitting the right sites, like for University of Wisconsin, Department of Agriculture, different Department of Agricultures across the country that have things on YouTube.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there's so many different sources where you can learn things, and I'm always open to something new and stuff and whatever. I hate to give somebody a plug, but Dr. Andrew Weil from the University of Arizona
Yes.
is one of the first physicians that really pushed anti-inflammation diet, whatever, and teaching nutrition and stuff to doctors in med school. A lot of med schools don't teach doctors; they teach you how to cure things. They don't teach you much about how to prevent things, or whatever. So, reading a lot has been my forte as far as learning a lot.
I think that's an important thing, and we would invite anybody in our audience to put some of their favorite sites into the chat, and we'll capture those. Shenita, I know you have a background in education, and can you could you take it from Oscar to talk about how you encourage people to learn? And I would actually give it to you and Carolyn, but I know your background in education makes you uniquely qualified to speak into that.
Yeah. I mean, I think Oscar really nailed it there. This curriculum about teaching folks how to cook with vegetable and fruit, that's not necessarily something that I had growing up in school. And so taking the initiative to learn on your own oftentimes is one of the better strategies to kind of, get your feet wet and figure out, what works for you. YouTube, I think I just saw in the chat, there's a curriculum that is available to folks. So, I think making these resources available, taking courses, cooking courses. My mom, when we first started, that's what we did. We offered training classes to folks on how to prepare these healthy meals. But it really does take initiative from folks to say, I want to change my life. And I want to change my diet. I want to live and eat a better, palette full of food. And so, seeking out those resources actively to find, what is the best match for you to get the training and support you need.
That's great. Carolyn, add to that.
I everything that both Oscar and Shenita said, absolutely true. I come from it from the perspective of community. I come the way I learned, and I think, and the way I learned as a child was watching my mama in the kitchen, like, you know, Yvonne said, back to the kitchen. Uh, how I learned was being exposed to people eating fruits and vegetables, right? That inspired me. I know when I was going around teaching children how to eat healthy, I recall a job I had in Minneapolis, and they had a farm, right? And they wanted me to teach children how to eat healthy, but here it is. They wanted me to teach children how to how to make a healthy pizza. Instead of using pork sausage, let's use turkey sausage. And I was at the mindset, no, 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 no. I'm going to teach these children how to enjoy fruits and vegetables. And let me tell you something. I have children who had never had a collard green leaf, who had never had kale, who had never eaten, you know, carrots, from cabbage, and exposing them to it. And see, and that's part of the problem, is that the myth is children do not like fruits and vegetables. They do. The thing of it is that we have to not make this a project where it is something that, like, it's an event. This is something you do. This has to become normal. It is, you see your mama, you see your daddy, you see your sister, you see your brother, you see your next door neighbor. You know, I talked to a neighbor of mine just earlier today, as a matter of fact, about getting together and doing my garden. And, you know, we're going to go Sunday, get together and start doing some things. And so what I do in my community is going to inspire my next door neighbor, the children over there. You know, when I was what I had yet last year, I shared with the people in my community, right? And I heard young folks, people say to me, you know what, this is good. My doctor diagnosed me with high blood pressure and diabetes, and I'm overweight and I need to eat healthy. So for me, I'm starting where I am, you know, in my community, knocking on doors and hearing these people that nobody is talking to say, thank you. And I just want to thank Yvonne and also you, David, for, you know, inviting Shenita and I on this, you know, your show, your podcast. And I've learned a lot, but I'm not a part of an organization. This is something that Shenita and I do on our own, you know, freely, because we see people that look like us. My own personal experience, because of their diet, because of their lifestyle, and because there's nobody in their community role modeling that.
Yeah, I think that's it's very important. I want to ask Yvonne a question to kind of wrap what you said into some science, because this is really important. And I know Yvonne has done a lot of this work. In fact, she's doing her dissertation around these assets in the community. Yvonne, Ms. Carolyn said some idea about community, watching parents or grandparents. She said role modeling, the inspiration and sharing. Can you bring that into this idea of how we should be thinking about fruits and vegetables, eating in general, but what she's saying about how we can support the community in this space?
Yes. Some of the work that I've been doing is talking about our social capital. And what social capital is the connections that we have, the connections within the family, the connections within the community, some of the bridging relationships that we have, some of the connections to what they call food safety net organizations, the idea that there is a WIC and that there is food stamps and there is these things, these connections. However, we have people who are not connected. And they have seen sometimes that having low social connections can be just as harmful to your system as smoking or not exercising, just not being connected to others. That when you reach out, and Caroline is reaching out every day, she reaches out to anybody she sees in the park. People warm up to that. And, during the COVID days, it impacted us. But, the idea that that makes a difference when people eat together, they eat more. When they are sharing with each other, those connections, that changes how you think of even eating. Some people don't even want to eat, or they're not really motivated to eat healthier foods when they are not connected. So when you are sharing and you're sharing what you're doing, just like this program is sharing with the community, there's people that would get motivated to say, I want to be and I want to do like others, but like you said, if you don't have any of that exposure. And so when we talk about having classes in the community, when you start talking about sharing and teaching and sharing what you're doing, even some of those, some what I've been getting into, because people used to ask me, what do you eat? I'm starting to share some of my meals online to show people you can eat healthy, you can enjoy what you're eating and not always have to be eating just junk. A plate of that, like my vegetable wrap that I did today. And I at the end, when I was holding it up, people don't know, I was like torture. It was like I wanted to eat it. Children, when they are able to cook the food and they are able to be there and see it being made and seeing it being transformed, they are more ready to eat those vegetables. They are so getting the kids back into the kitchen, helping, letting them help you, letting them say, what recipe do we want? I mean, I have a kid's recipe book. My grandkids look through that book every time they come. And then we decide if we're going to make any of those, or even they'll tell you how you can adjust it. My grandson will tell you how you can adjust it because he's got allergy to meet his needs. And so they're involved in food. So that's where it comes into that social aspect of eating that makes it different. And they had one time they created a day, a family meal day, a day for families to eat together. And I was like, oh my God, we were growing up, everybody ate at the table. They had their own chair. You sitting in my chair. No, this is my, we had our own space. Now kids are not always eating anywhere near their parents. We need to get back into eating together and also enjoying food together.
May I just say one thing real quick, and really, because, and I know Yvonne knows this and Shenita knows this too, but I've been able, to travel a little bit in different communities, and I found that when I was teaching middle class and upper middle class white families and white children who were spending $300, $400, $500 a summer for the baskets you get from the farmer.
Right.
I recall this guy, I had made something with kale, and he tried it. And he said to me, this is a white professional suburbanite guy. He said, I didn't think I liked kale, that he was getting those kale in his baskets. And what he would do was give that kale away to his neighbors, a friend of his daughter, to feed it to the rabbit. So, the assumption is, and I think that is true to some degree, but across the board, you have some of everybody, a lot of white folks too, a lot of white children who have access. They too don't know how to cook and don't know how to put those fruits and vegetables together to never had them, too. So yeah, I just wanted to share that piece as well.
There is a need for this across the spectrum in all communities, but this is certainly, as you just pointed out, a phenomenon. We're overscheduled, and so we don't think about eating. We think of it as a last resort, and families tend to do it quickly and as opposed to enjoying. Yvonne, you want to give us a wrap up?
Yes, and I wanted to say this has been a wonderful, wonderful program. Some of the takeaways that I have, and there's many, but I'm just going to go through the list a little bit, is that we need to experiment with our cooking and be open to eating new things and experimenting with spices and flavors, and that our palates will change as we get in and enjoy more vegetables. And our health will improve despite ourselves. We don't have to do anything just by eating those fruits and vegetables. We will see the benefits because our body will respond. And exercise balances out those calories. The starchy, non-starchy vegetables is important to kind of understand, but that the exercise piece of it balances out all of the things that we are looking at. The other point is that you're never too old to learn. That there is so many researchers from the Cleveland Clinic, from PBS, from doctors in the field. Oh, you can learn YouTube videos. Hanafi, one of my former students, she's listening, and she said the thing that she found, she loved the recipe, but she said church lady portions. She said she's from Turkey. She didn't know what church lady portions is. And I told her, I said, boy, those church ladies would put on those extra portions and make sure you had enough to take home with
Too
you.
much.
So watching those portions are very important, but also to take initiative to change your lifestyle, that you can change at any age, that no matter where you started, you can start today and make sure you change your lifestyle. And then we must expose our children. We must get the children back into understanding that you can make everything from scratch. One of the ones that I always made from scratch was anything that did with the potato, I made it from scratch, not from box mashed potatoes and that type of thing, and getting into whole foods. So with that, I just wanted to say this has been wonderful to bring you on. Summer is coming up. I'm looking forward to maybe Oscar gave me a container that I've been saying I'm going to use for 2 years to do some container gardening. And I'm going to start doing, I'm making this pledge, Oscar. I'm going to do
I'm listening. I ain't gonna forget.
I'm doing it this year. I'm doing it this year. So thank you both and all of you and Oscar for being on the program. And I look forward to, we didn't get into this, but Carolyn and Shenita, I'm going to be on their program coming up pretty soon as they start having their new podcasts out, these three things. And David, if you want to finish us out.
Oh, let me just thank Oscar Bond. What a joy to finally meet you. I've heard lots of great things about you. Carolyn Carter, I just love what you stand for, and I just love your energy, and I look for when you get it in because it makes me want to get it in.
Yes.
And Dr. Shenita Ray, it was so nice to meet you and hear from your experience and your collaboration with your mother. This is Days of Learning podcast, Kitchen Takeover. Our next program will be on March 17th at 8:30 in the morning. It will be our only morning show, so it'll be breakfast with the Kitchen Takeover. But we're going to have an awesome show. I've seen parts of this already, and I've experienced this. Back to the kitchen with grains. And our guest is going to be Truman McGee of Funky Fresh Spring Rolls, who's going to bring it, and Caitlin Cullen of the Tandem Milwaukee. If you've enjoyed the show, leave us a comment. If you enjoy the show, go on to Apple or Spotify or YouTube, and we ask you to listen, to subscribe, and to share.
I had one thing that we didn't finish up, and we'll do it next time, is for those who was able to put in their 2 starchy vegetables and their 2 non-starchy vegetables, we will let you know what the drawing is, how that came out at our next podcast. So tune in to the next one.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ms. Yvonne. Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye. Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.
It was great.